Hello, everyone. My name is Juliana, and I'm the Radically Rural Director. I want to welcome you to the recording of our first ever virtual roundtable for Radically Rural, which was called Against the Green. We had three fantastic panelists, two from Oregon, one from California, and they were telling us about their efforts over the past many years in reviving returnable, refillable bottling systems in America. It was a really great conversation, and we're excited to continue to bring this topic to the forefront over time. One quick note before you jump in. This was my first ever time recording a Zoom meeting, and I did have small children with me. So please ignore the quirks and just enjoy the really fantastic content. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
The thing about Hood River and the place where we live, it's such a beautiful environment and people love to be outside. It's a magical place. And we love being a part of that, and we feel a responsibility for it, which is what guides us to make the decisions that we do. Our next crisis as a country, as a world, is the climate crisis. Governments, individuals, businesses all have to take steps forward to make effective change, and I want to be part of that. I want to be a leader in that process. In every country I've been in, a refillable, returnable bottle is standard, and it's such a magical way to use the most sustainable container that uses the least amount of carbon. And so we had an opportunity like, why not put beer in a returnable bottle? Nobody's doing it. Everybody's going to say I'm crazy, but why not? We get to make our own rules. If you go back 15 years, recycling was the bomb. Really, the current scientific analysis is, yeah, don't take stuff straight to the landfill. If you can recycle it, that's cool. But if you can reuse it, that is the most effective way.
People need to understand that the refillable bottle is like 10% of the environmental impact of the normal glass bottle, and the can has got many other problems. It's got a terrible energy profile, and the can is not a great solution.
I've been criticized by some brewers because I'm really down on the use of the aluminum can. In their manufacturing, one of the main ingredients is bauxite. That has to be mined from the earth and strip mined from the earth. And so the environmental damage just from mining the bauxite to make an aluminum can, it's energy intensive, uses a lot of carbon, and it deforests entire swaths of the earth. And then the problem with aluminum is it corrosively reacts with the acidity of beer. So to protect the beer from corroding the can, they line it with a plastic liner. That plastic liner is likely carcinogenic. And I don't want to drink beer from plastic. Do you want to drink beer from plastic? So you've got a high energy intensive, poor climate package. It's lined with plastic. Because of the wide mouth of a can during the filling process, it's hard to get all the oxygen out of that container. So oxygen's damaging to beer flavor. And so if I got a beer in an aluminum can, a beer in a glass bottle, which one's going to have the best shelf life? Glass bottle, 1,000,000 times over. If you talk to any major brewery, the big guys that do it right, that have the scientists on their staff, they'll tell you 10 times out of 10 times, beer in glass is better than beer out of a can, hands down. I could easily just make beer all day long, have a successful business, live in a beautiful place. But I care about the world around us, and I care about the world that I'm going to leave to my children.
It's pretty clear to me that the refillable bottles are absolutely the way to go. They're better for people's health and for the planet's health. They use 10% of the energy and have significantly less environmental impact and personal health issues to do with the lining of the can and the emissions that come out of aluminum plants.
Sometimes people ask me why I get excited about refillable bottles. One, it's a heavier glass, so it can be reused many times. That bottle can be cleaned and put fresh beer into it 25 to 30 times. With that heavier glass, it protects it against sunlight, so ultraviolet rays don't get through to spoil the beer. Because each time you reuse that bottle, you cut the carbon use of making a new bottle by 90%. So over the lifetime of one glass bottle being reused 25 to 30 times, it's the equivalent of 67, 68 cans that you would throw away. So, I mean, it's just a simple question. Do you want to drink 68 beers, or do you want to drink one and have the same carbon footprint? And so by using a bottle that gets returned and reused 25 to 30 times, I'm creating the least amount of carbon and helping protect our planet against climate change. Recycling has a lot of challenges to it, and especially, unfortunately, with small brewers. Small brewers are really gravitating towards cans that have a plastic shrink wrapping to put their label on, or even a pressure-sensitive label to put their label on. And it's because they work in such small runs to put their beer in a unique package. But that shrink wrap cannot be recycled. The pressure-sensitive cannot be recycled. So you've got this well-intentioned beer drinker that's trying to recycle his can, but that can is fouling the recycling stream. It's just another problem of the recycled aluminum market.
We're loading new glass here, or this is reusable glass. This is stuff that came out of the bottle cleaner that we're loading on. Coming through.
We used this bottle that came out of Germany. It was our 500 ml bottle. That's the Double Mountain bottle at this point. And we started reusing that bottle. We would get the bottles cleaned and reuse them here in the brewery, and it was quite successful.
New at 6, when you recycle your beer bottles in Oregon, they may now go straight back to the brewery. The Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative has launched a new pilot program to collect beer bottles, clean them, and return them to the brewery for reuse. Right now, the only brewery...
I, however, was getting fought by different retailers around the state that didn't want to deal with those return bottles, didn't want to save the bottles for me to recollect and get back to the brewery. Along comes the Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative, the OBRC. They came to me and said, we want to develop our own Oregon bottle that could be reused and used by many breweries around the state. And I thought it was a great idea. And we were the flagship brewery to jump onto that new bottle. So we partnered with the OBRC. They have a 12-ounce bottle. They have a new 500 ml bottle. That bottle is unique to Oregon. I got to go to Ohio to the glass manufacturing plant to help them design that bottle. So we're pretty proud of that bottle, and we're pretty proud of what the OBRC is doing. Oregon's the first state to bring back a returnable, refillable bottle to the United States. We want to be the leader. We want to be the mentor for other states. The future is a reusable package. I love this bottle. I really do. There are a lot of folks around Oregon now that are starting to move to this 12-ounce bottle, and my hope is we'll see every brewery in the state using this bottle in the next 10 years. I think overall, if you want to make an impact on reducing the fossil fuels that are destroying our world, you need to make individual choices. One of them is choosing a bottle that gets reused, taking your business to places that are putting the best practices in place. We've started it. Several breweries are joining us in the process and using the best bottle, and I think that's only going to get more and more. So if you're another brewery, I encourage you to use the best bottle going, that tastes the best, has the least carbon in its life cycle. And if you're a consumer, keep drinking beer, keep loving our planet.
The program to clean up trash on the highway, and so they monitor all the stuff. They wanted to also be part of this refillable project. So they partnered with Owens Glass, which is an international glass manufacturer. And they, Owens is hemorrhaging in the glass market because of the consumer shift to cans. And so they were highly interested in doing the next most sustainable thing and making a green footprint. And they're in all these other countries. They've seen how a returnable system can work successfully, and they had done it everywhere else in the world. So they opened up their engineering team and their art team and said, let's design a new bottle. And we went out and did that. So now you've got a bottle that's made in Oregon. It's literally made 60 miles from my brewery. We truck it up the Columbia River Gorge, and I put beer in it, sell it to people. They bring me that bottle back, or they bring their bottle back to a local, bottle drop zone, which are all throughout the state, or to their retailer. And some retailers are still not helping out. Thank you, Safeway. and it's it's working and it's growing. And with the pandemic, there's been such a push and move to package rather than going out to your local bar or tavern. The package numbers are up substantially. I've got this entire local market that doesn't want to travel, and they've really keyed into this idea of a returnable bottle. And so they'll buy the bottle, take it home, drink it with their family, bring the bottles back, and just repeat the process. And we're doing 4 times the amount of glass of those returns this year, as opposed to last year. The last time I looked at it, we had done about 75,000 bottles that we re-cleaned and reused, and that was up through about October, and that was just January to October. So I'm hoping that we hit 100,000 units that are cleaned this year, and it just continues to grow. So we're excited. We're excited about connecting with our customers. We're excited to be part of climate change, or fighting against climate change and doing the right thing. I will say that sounds all very positive, but it's a story of losing the market, though, to what's happening in the can world, and we're kind of losing the propaganda game against the canning industry, which is also selling an environmental product. They're just doing it fraudulently. So it's a struggle. It's a hand-to-hand combat kind of thing. But if you think big picture, of course, a returnable, refillable, reusable product is better than buying a new one each time and throwing it away or recycling it. It's just common sense. So it can work. It can work on a small scale, with government intervention and giant leaders like what Karen's going to talk about, later here. It can work on a national scale as well. And so I'm the push from the bottom to make this work, and we're excited to be part of it. So I'll stop there and then take questions later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of go through our panelists, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. So I appreciate all the questions that are coming in through the chat, and we will kind of keep tabs on those, and we will answer them at the end. Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, and so now we're going to go over to Van. And again, I just want to make sure that he doesn't sell himself short here. I'm gonna, so Van started his brewing career in 1995 at Minnesota Brewing Company in St. Paul, Minnesota, before working for the Rock Bottom Brewers for the next 16 years. He was a brewmaster at the Bethsaida, Maryland, and Portland, Oregon Rock Bottoms, as well as the regional brewer in both locations and the company QA/QC manager. He's a current board member and past president of the Oregon Breweries Guild. In 2011, he won the, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, INGE. How do you say that, Van? Inga Russell Best Paper Award from the Master Brewer.
No Scandinavians where you live.
Do what?
No Scandinavians where you live.
Best Paper Award from the Master Brewers Association of the Americas. He and business partner Ben Love started Gigantic Brewing Company in Portland, Oregon. Gigantic has taken home top honors at, I'm not going to say that one right either. Can you say that one?
Yeah.
Yep. In Montreal, Quebec, the World Beer Cup, and the Great American Beer Festival in Denver, Colorado, and was rated the 5th best new brewery in the world for 2012 by Rate Beer. All right, so Van, tell us your story. Take it away.
You know, when Matt was introducing himself and said that everyone thought he was insane for starting refillable bottles? That was me. I really did. I was just like, oh my God, Matt is a crazy man. And I massively respect that. I thought what he was doing was really cool. And then when he teamed up with OBRC, and OBRC came around to us and said, hey, we've got this refillable bottle. My business partner looked at him and said, yeah, rad. Do you have it in 500 mils? And they were like, actually, we do. And that's when Ben and I looked at each other and were like, well, we're obviously going to do this. We wanted to do it because we think it's the right thing to do. We firmly believe in glass, just does. I'm not going to get into those technicalities. What I am going to get into is talking about community. I mean, this is the Radically Rural, platform here, and I get it. I'm a guy who makes beer in it's Portland, Oregon. It's really not that big, but for New Hampshire, it's big. For a lot of places, it's big, but we're a city of neighborhoods, more so than a lot of places. And the thing about refillable bottles is, I firmly believe that refillable bottles build community. I say this all the time. If you start a brewery and what you try to do is sell beer, you might do okay. But if what you do instead is sell a relationship between the drinker and the brewery, that's how you really have a successful brewery and a successful business. Beer is a part of people's lives in a way that other consumables kind of aren't. There's a strange emotional connection between drinkers and breweries. And that refillable bottle really kind of emphasizes that. There's something special about that inherently small town. I'm going to bring something back to you. You are going to refill it and give it back to me. It's not just a commercial relationship. It's an understanding between two parties in an exchange. And we really found this to be amazingly true during this past disastrous year. Matt had mentioned that his in-person sales had gone up drastically. I never bothered to calculate the percentage of what we're doing. We might be doing seriously 800 or 900% more in-person bottle sales now than we were at the beginning. And I firmly believe that the return customer aspect of refillables is really key to that. And in terms of making this important to small communities, I just can't emphasize enough. I think this is probably a better concept in small communities than in large communities. It's a reason for people to come back and talk to each other and interact. I mean, it's not just beer, and it's not even just alcohol. You could be making jam, frankly, or soap products or any number of other things that you might want to be putting into refillable packaging. And I think it's a great way to develop very personal relationships with the people that buy your products. And if all you're doing is whatever, but there's more potential commerce than that. I'm not going to talk a lot. There's this band, Low, you don't need to know them. They made a Christmas album in about 1997, and I love this. On the back of the Low Christmas album, it says, despite the commerce involved, please consider this our gift to you, right? And that's kind of how I think about beer, right? There has to be some commerce involved, but I think of it all like beer is a relationship to me, and refillable bottles are part of that. I think it's a powerful thing. I think it's something that really can be explored in small communities as well as large communities. I encourage all kinds of manufacturing to get involved in it. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do. There you go. That's my bit. And mad respect to Matt because he way stuck his neck out. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Van. And I love that you brought up that it could even be jam, or, it can be kombucha, it can be wine, it can be anything. And our executive director for Hannah Grimes was talking about that today and how excited we are about seeing what ways we can implement this in our communities. So thank you so much for sharing, and we're really grateful you're here.
Brought the same coffee can to the guy who raised worms to go fishing for bullhead in southern Minnesota. I mean, my entire childhood.
Yeah, that's a great example. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to introduce Karen Mcnamara now. Karen founded Conscious Container, a California benefit corporation, in 2017 to bring a refillable marketplace back into the US economy and infrastructure and beyond. After over 20 years as a successful project and change management consultant, Karen was inspired by the circular economy solutions Refillables presented. As a bootstrapping startup, she conducted proof of concept collection pilots, which proved the demand and desire for this refillable glass bottle marketplace. With her amazing team, Karen is working collaboratively and strategically across key stakeholder groups, including policymakers, beverage producers, local and regional government, cities, industry groups, and nonprofits as Conscious Container launches and scales this benefit for all sustainable refillable business model. On the side, Karen loves mountain sports and connecting with family, friends, and anyone who wants to dialogue about refillables. That's us, Karen. We want to dialogue about refillables.
Yeah, I think people kind of walk, my friends and family walk away from me now. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd like to share my screen, but right now, Juliana, it says I can't. So if you can put me as a co-host, then I can share this, share a few slides. But you know,
Yeah.
I first wanted to
you can try now.
Try now? Cool. All right. So I just wanted to, can everybody see a lake there? I have to go through this process, unfortunately.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, this is my rural town lake. All right, so I just wanted to, you know, what Van just brought up, first of all, these two gentlemen, in case, this is an honor just for me to be with them. Van is a thought leader within the craft brewing community across the United States, and Matt is just knocking it out of the park. I mean, Matt and I are kind of in the same place. I mean, everybody thinks we're crazy, but I can tell you we're not. And I'm going to go through and just take you through a little bit of Conscious Container. And I'm going to go through this quickly because I know you have some questions, but quite frankly, what we're doing is we see it as redefining the landscape of sustainable glass packaging. And I'm going to give you just some really big picture items here, is that when I look at Conscious Container, what we're doing and what we all have the challenge is this single-use packaging waste crisis. I mean, it's unsustainable, right? It's destroying our oceans. It's taxing our waste and recycling systems. I mean, they're not, it's not working very well, right? And then what's also happening, and I'll talk just a little bit more about this, I got some recent information about it, is it's demanding, corporations are going to become accountable for that end of life packaging waste. It will happen, and it is happening. And so what we've put together is basically a refillable packaging business where we sell, collect, wash, and resell refillable bottles. We're starting with refillable glass bottles. And then we're also, what we're doing, and this is the whole entrepreneurial journey, is how can we do it smarter and better? And so we're looking at putting basically QR codes right on the glass of these bottles. Not only, we want to start to get some data about those turns, right? And there's some real economics around that. And then also how we engage with consumers, because and I'll talk about our Anheuser-Busch pilot, is that consumers want to do this. They want to be a part of that solution, and technology can begin to engage them. And then the last thing is the value proposition, and Matt talked about this. It's like corporations, they can reduce their packaging footprint, they can reduce the cost of their packaging, and they can reduce the waste. So the value proposition is absolutely huge. And what I loved is we focus on the beverage industry, but this is for all across the board. I had Smucker's Jam Company reach out to me. Jam jars, man. I mean, just really, you were spot on there. So it's really about, you know, the challenge we're solving here is how we and all of us, how we create infrastructure, economic infrastructures to move what I call assets. This package is not waste, it's an asset. And so we're looking at all different kinds of ways. And because we're at the beginning stages, we're starting to bring some pretty smart people into our business to kind of help us think about how we can do this. But really, and some of these models are really can be implemented in any kind of a community. And the numbers are off the charts. I mean, Matt talked about this, and this was a recent report from Reloop and Zero Waste Europe, I think it is a reusable glass container is 85% less emissions than glass 57 for aluminum, and 70% compared to PET. It's off the charts. There's no doubt about it. And then these are just some numbers that we put together with our business model about the kind of impact that we're going to be having just in the first 5 years. And these are, I believe, very conservative numbers. I'm just going to talk briefly. We did a pilot. We just closed it out. We're getting the data together. Anheuser-Busch, who most of us know is Budweiser, got together with us. They have a sustainability accelerator program, and we ran a pilot in Northern California, really where the beer, we had 2 of their brands. They funded this pilot. And all I can say about this whole experience is it was difficult to launch last year. Last year was really difficult working with retailers, and just the fact we got it off the ground was impressive, I think. And in part to the AV team also that helped us. But what this is that these large corporations know that this is coming, that they're going to be responsible for their end of life packaging waste, that everybody's saying you got to stop throwing this packaging out there. And some are being more upfront and putting money into it. And I have to say Anheuser-Busch is one of them. We definitely didn't hit the mark so much on the collection, but we pivoted so much on just getting this off the ground and ran into, quite frankly, a lot of challenges. But what it says is that we can do this. And we know from the data that we definitely connected good data that consumers want this. We knocked it out of the park in that respect. Oops, oh, I got this, sorry. This is one of my older slides. And one of the other things I wanted to bring to this community is I live in a rural community in Truckee, California. We're up here in the mountains. We're about 24,000, which may be bigger or smaller than some of your communities. But literally where I got started was here. And I am one person who said, what can I go do about this, not talk about it? And quite frankly, this was, I started Earth Day in 2017. And I said, I'm just going to go launch this business. I will say that I set it up as a benefit corporation. I think that's really important to think about and make sure you look into. This says that the corporation the leadership team and the board of directors can balance benefit and profit to make decisions, whether that benefits environmental or social. And I think how we do business is really how things are going to change. What we're doing is really important, but how we conduct business. And a lot of small communities already work this way, but I think that's a really important point to make. And all I can say is I went around, I was at the farmer's market at first. I set up, bins. You can see the bins I set up, and we get a lot of snow up here. So I was digging out bins in the wintertime. But we had successful pilots. We collected over 70,000 bottles as we went through that process. So, and this was just in a local rural community. And everybody I went to talk to said, can I put a bin out back of your liquor store or your whatever store? And they all said yes. And so there's a lot of power that and a lot of example that can come from a rural community. The other thing I just wanted to share real quick is that, I'm way up in the mountains away from all the government entities, but we have made some impressive, quite frankly, progress on really changing the narrative at the legislative level. And I believe that is a strong component of how we all begin to change the OBRC in Oregon they're not a government agency, but you need folks like that involved. So we were awarded our greenhouse, Cal Recycle greenhouse gas grant. And the monies come from the cap and trade program here in California. But the whole reason that this grant got on the books is because we went to Cal Recycle and said, we want to participate in your grants. And they said, no, you can't. And I said, what? These are reused. This is a greenhouse gas grant, right? And they said, you're not remanufacturing a product. And we all looked at each other, and the attorneys came back with that. And we said, no, they said, that's not right. They knew that was not right. So they came back to me 6 months later and they put this grant together because they knew that reuse was at a higher level than recycling, because they run our recycling system here in California. So with a lot of work and a lot of diligence, we ended up with this grant. And this is actually on the wine side of the business, because we're working with beer, wine, and non-alcoholic. And actually, somebody mentioned kombucha. One of the largest California kombucha providers we're redesigning his bottle to be refillable right now. And he's one of the big players, funded by one of the big folks, big beverage producers. And then the last thing I want to put out there is that, what's today, Thursday, yesterday, Conscious Container worked on our system here in California. Our redemption system does not support returnable bottles. They have to crush the glass after it's brought back by the consumer. And it's a fraud prevention method. So they said, well, you have to go in and get statutory changes. So we literally got a bill numbered in the system, and we squeaked into the hearing on Thursday, or excuse me, Wednesday, today's Thursday. And we got a full bipartisan passing of this through the first committee. We've got lots of steps to go, but that was that we got all even the Republicans, that's really bad. All the folks passed it. And we got full support from Anheuser-Busch, Sierra Club, so many people called in. And all I have to say is that even when you're in a rural place, I want to say that even from up here, we are making a difference. And I want to support what rural communities present. And I believe strongly that, beer is community. We've got a couple of craft brewers here that they are the largest gathering place in our community right now. So I'm going to stop there. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, I noticed a lot of you are from the Northeast. There's a Northeast Recycling Council that works on the recycling, and we are actually part of a glass. Anheuser-Busch brought Conscious Container into they're putting together model legislation for the Northeast for glass. And they've brought Conscious Container in to bring the narrative of refillables. And one thing I want to mention, we just got off the phone with Anheuser-Busch about some legislation that's going on in Scotland that I think, Matt, you're gonna love this. And I mentioned this when we chatted, and we'll talk about it later, but Anheuser-Busch says they have full confidence that in Scotland an ERP program is going to pass, and it has. I just got the documents, I haven't read them, but it says that refillables are an advantaged packaging product. You're going to get, you producer are going to benefit from a redemption program system. So I think Matt and I are out front, but we are just riding at the front of that wave. It's happening. And rural communities, I think, are a fantastic place to really start the change and create the change. I mean, Matt's in a kind of a rural community too, up there in Hood River. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I love rural communities. Thank you.
That was fantastic, Karen. Thank you so much. And congratulations about your legislative win yesterday. That's so exciting. I think that, we were kind of discussing this when the panelists and I met together. We talked about how important both the bottom up, like grassroots effort, and the top down, how they both are so necessary, so that eventually we're going to meet in the middle. But I do think that getting some of the big corporate players, getting the legislation, all of that is going to be really necessary to make it easier for the smaller enterprises that are working on this. So we're all just going to keep working on it. But thank you so much for that. And then the last thing we're going to do before Q&A, I had talked with Matt about kind of presenting a hypothetical scenario of, let's say rural community X, whoever that is, wants to do this. What do they have to do? And what steps do they need to take? So Matt, are you still able to do that?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Happy to wing anything. I'll give a couple examples of how it could work, for a small brewery, a small winery. And one, I had a buddy that is looking to do a brewery, a little brew pub in the San Juan Islands, which is a pretty isolated area up near the Seattle area. It's gorgeous up there. And he was coming to me with just bouncing ideas off what would work. And I'm like, man, the whole world is going to cans. So I'd be amiss, if you didn't look into that just for your profitability and paying the bills on your family. But I and he knows me well. I'm like, I hate cans though. You might consider doing a refillable bottle. You're in the islands. It's a small footprint. You can run around with a pickup truck or a van. You're going to deliver your beer. He's going to make maybe all of 800 barrels of beer a year, which isn't quite a lot, and sell it to people on the island. And especially during the pandemic, there's, people are fleeing to those kinds of places, and they're looking for small local products. And so I just thought it would be a really nice way to connect with everybody on the island. It would meet the culture. He could partner with the local, couple local bottle accounts, grocery stores as points where people could take the bottles back. He could pick them up, bring them back. And then there's, those of us close to the northern part of the world, there are bottle cleaning facilities all throughout Canada. And so, the place that we use is in British Columbia, but it's one of several. And if you're in the Northeast, United Bottles, which is based out of Montreal, has facilities on that part of the continent. And so, it's a little bit of logistics to figure out how to get dirty glass to go through customs and get it back. But it's a couple weeks of legwork the first time, and then it's pretty easy. And we're trucking glass across the border into Canada several times a year, and the costs are manageable. The carbon footprint works out, and again, all said and done, even with trucking and a little customs, and the cleaning fee, that ends up being a cheaper glass container than me buying it new. And so the real benefit is you get this, you're making a connection, with a retailer, and it's hard, we're bringing a new product into the world. The biggest challenge can be at the retail level of just getting your bottle or can on a shelf, because everybody's competing for that same shelf space. And so, if I come with a unique story to that retailer, they're more apt to give me a benefit. If I've got the same story as everybody else there, then why wouldn't I get dropped? So the smaller the better, as I like to say, and the whole way this works is personal relationships. If you can reach out, talk to somebody, be passionate about what you do, and that works so well in small communities. Word of mouth, people that's how you get it done. And I've asked so many favors of so many people and borrowed equipment from people. And, when I started the brewery, I gathered up junk and duct taped it together to build a brewery. It's a common story amongst a lot of brewers, but it's all based on word of mouth and the relationship you have with individuals. And that works well and can work well for anybody. And I will say, if anybody has questions, once more resources, all said and done, Juliana, you're welcome to share my contact information with everybody. I'm happy to email people back and forth.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we can go ahead and start with some questions then. It looks like Blake has raised his hand and we have some questions in the chat. So why don't we go with Blake's question and then we'll go through the questions in the chat.
Hey, so I'm Blake Amaker. I actually own Copper Cannon Distillery in West Chesterfield, New Hampshire. It's funny, Matt, because I think you're right near Mount Hood, and I'm actually an aerospace engineer also. And
sorry about that.
I haven't given up to the evil empire yet. I still work for them, but we actually work with a company that's Mount Hood Technologies, which is right in your neighborhood.
Right.
So I guess my question is, and I had to drop off for a second there, so I apologize if I missed something, but we're a super micro, I would even call us maybe even a nano or maybe a pico, like even smaller than nano distillery, right? So we're fairly small as far as how much volume we have. So from a financial or economic standpoint, it really doesn't make sense for us to outsource the cleaning. We just probably couldn't afford that expense and the logistics and associated with that. Do you have processes or procedures that maybe we could utilize to actually do it internally, working with our employees, or does that just not make sense?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. Yeah, you can do it in-house, with some, build some stainless bins. You could do it by hand if you wanted. And that's how a lot of us, Van and I, we used to clean kegs by hand back in the day. They had a bung on the side of it. You'd open it up and you had a keg washer, which was just a trough with a pump. You could hand dip it, you could soak, and especially at smaller volumes, I think it would work well, to be honest. And then when we were tiny starting, and I was trying to solve the same question that you had, I found some, picture a commercial dishwasher. I found some units, I think again, out of like the Quebec area, that you could roll in several upside down bottles and they washed the glass and they had nozzle heads on it and a lot of upward flow. And it was about a 10-minute process. It wouldn't work. I mean, it would work at a very finite level, say you wanted to clean 20 bottles at a time and then move on. And so it's not scalable, but a distillery, I think it could work well. I will say that we still re-clean our, a growler is a large half-gallon container that's used, in almost all states. You probably guys are familiar with them. Get a growler, take it home, put it in the fridge. But we re-clean those growlers for customers, and we do it in a commercial dishwasher, and we do it 6 at a time. And it works well. We've got an inspection process, and it's a dishwasher that gets up to 180 degrees. So small is good. You can make it work. I would contact your local county health department for the exact requirements that you might have to hit. I'm guessing with a spirits product, it wouldn't really matter, whatever you did. But rinsed and clean would work really well, especially for your product. I think it's a great opportunity.
And we've started to already collect bottles to basically ask for those back, not knowing what we're going to do in the future. So we're already positioning for it right now. So that's good feedback on how the right people to contact. And it's a little bit different from brewing. I mean, when we're distilling, we have a ton of like almost downtime because we're sitting there just watching it distill. So it's something we can knock out fairly quickly with the volumes we're dealing with. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a 3-basin system might be enough. I mean, and you could do it by hand. If you had a guy that, does 4 glasses every 10 minutes, I mean, it might work just fine.
Right.
And Van,
honestly, Blake, you could probably fab something up in an afternoon and it would work great. I mean, cleaning is just time, temperature, and concentration. That's all it is, right?
Right.
So it's pretty easy to find something that can keep a bath hot and a pump and some spray nozzles. That's literally all it is, right?
Right.
You make a rack with spray nozzles. You put the bottles on the spray nozzles, so you do the inside. You have some sort of upper bit that's going to spray all over the top. You enclose it, big pump, put a screen in the bottom so when the labels come off, they don't gum up your pump. You're done.
Our labels peel off. They already peel off fairly easy because they're kind of like a vinyl label. Yeah. So it's not like the paper that just disintegrates. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Honestly, it's like just if you would have seen the kind of stuff that Matt and I were brewing on back in the 90s, you would no longer. I mean, I built more than one keg washer by going to the hardware store and being like, okay, I need that sink, I need this section of copper, I need this, and just fabbing it up.
Sounds
That's
like
awesome.
my distillery.
No, he has a fantastic distillery. And if there's anyone on here who's in the area and they haven't visited Copper Cannon, they totally should. It's amazing. Feel free to drop the link for your business in there too, Blake.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through and see what questions we have. So Peter's question was the first one, and he said, in New Hampshire, the bottle bill was defeated about 40 years ago. Without that, is reusable bottles a viable option in the state? And so Karen responded and said, we believe it can be. We will be doing some modeling in non-bottle bill states later this year. So Karen or Peter, whichever one, can you explain a little bit more about what the challenge would be in a non-bottle bill state? Like, why is being a bottle bill state going to make this process easier?
Well, yeah,
It's an existing infrastructure.
I mean,
that you,
yes, and I was involved in fighting that bottle bill back in those, fighting for the bottle bill, which doesn't. So in New Hampshire, as in some other states, there is no deposit, no return. There's no law that requires you to deposit and return your bottles. So everybody throws theirs on the side of the road, and people go. The state pays people to go around and pick them up. So that's kind of our recycling in New Hampshire. But what you're describing sounds like it doesn't necessarily depend on a statewide returnable bottle program. It's almost more a community-based thing. Although, Matt, you said that it certainly helped when the state went to returnable bottles and helped you that way. So that was the reason for my question.
yeah, we have two sides to building our model and scaling, and there's more non-bottleable states than bottleable states in the United States. So how do we build the economics around that? And we're going to be modeling in Nevada. I did a pilot in Nevada with Great Basin Brewing, Tom Young, maybe Van and Matt, you know him. He's he's all in on this also. So we believe that there are avenues through incentives, because it's either through incentives or convenience that we get consumers engaged in this process. So that's our goal, is to build out models also for non-bottle bill states. But I think, Peter, it has to be within the next 5 years. I think we're going to start to see a real shift in the, federal wide programs. We see the producers, the large producers, and they're all reaching out to us. I mean, Coca-Cola's talking to us, Pepsi's talking to us, right? They know that this is coming and they want to figure it out. So I believe we're all going to see a shift. And there's in Scotland, Anheuser-Busch is supporting that whole EPR program. So I think there's a lot of hope, quite frankly, through action, that we're gonna start to see that shift. I don't know what Van and Matt think, but the tide is turning, as, what is that? Pink Floyd said that. So hang in there and do reach out to the Northeast Recycling Council. They're pretty active, and we're active with them.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And then Julianne had a great comment that it's just this, if you guys could see my house right now, bless it. I was gonna stay at work to do this, but I wanted to come home and be with everyone. So so she had a comment that it's interesting to her because in her rural community, there's high skepticism that the recycling actually happens. I would think it would build higher community and consumer confidence. I would agree with that. I've heard a lot of things about, like, does it really matter whether we recycle? But this is like tangible, like they come back, they're being reused. So I think that's a great comment. Thank you, Julianne. And Steve said, can the speaker say anything about whether when and whether critical mass might be reached to justify capitalization of washing plant in Northern California or maybe Southern Oregon, as opposed to shipping to Montana or Canada?
Go
That's
ahead,
us.
Karen.
That's us. Yeah, we're building that model so that, we don't want to be shipping that far. The closer we can ship to home, the better. But yeah, go ahead, Matt.
And I think the OBRC state model was really in two phases. This original phase is using the facility in Montana to wash the glass, establish the concept and then build the volume. And once the volume was established, then a Portland facility would install a washing complex. That was the OBRC, and that that is their plan. The reality is the volumes have not come up to get to where it pays off for the OBRC, so they're lagging on their plans to fulfill that promise. Having said that, I mean, I feel like it's pretty close to where it works just for me. So I'm at a stage where a small bottle washer could work for my situation, and if the OBRC doesn't fulfill their pledge to get the job done and fulfill the rest of it, I want to, like Karen, whatever I can do to make this program work, because it's coming and it's the right thing to do. I could see building our own facility and partnering with Van and other interested brewers and being another site locally to clean glass as a partnership, as a cooperative, whether that's in Portland or down in Northern California. It wouldn't matter to me, but I want to see it done, and I'm motivated to get it done. But we're close to where I could make it work, just as a bad business decision for us personally.
Yeah, but Matt's being coy. Once again, he sounds like an insane man right now. But the fact of the matter is that. Thank you. I mean, in a positive way, man. But the reality is if you go to Germany, if you go to the Czech Republic, if you go to these places, I mean, breweries my size have their own bottle washer.
Yeah,
I'm about half the size of Matt.
Totally.
It is, you do not need to be wherever. I don't care where you are in the United States. There's a kind of large brewery near you. You don't need to be that big. Because all over Europe, there are these very small breweries that have bottle washers, and they're doing it as just part of what they've always done. So it's doable on really quite a small scale. Mm-hmm. As far as just to touch on the bottle bill thing, I mean, yeah, Oregon's a bottle bill state, but when Matt started doing his own thing, it was really kind of like a shadow bottle bill, It was this thing that sort of existed parallel to the bottle bill, but there didn't need to be a parallel. He could have done it by himself. So it just takes people making these decisions and making these investments, I think, honestly,
Well, and I do like the centralized location for the capital costs, but
it's way better.
What Van's talking about is very real, that small producers can make it work. And the beauty of doing it yourself is it's one less handling and shipping of the glass. So you just, the dirty bottles get loaded onto the line. They get cleaned on their way to the filler. And so it never touches, another pallet or another truck. It's just, you just bring in dirty beer bottles, throw it on your bottling line ahead of your bottle filler, and out comes a clean bottle of beer. It's magic, really, and that's what everybody does in another country, and that's the thing that blows me away, of a country of our technological skill and prowess, abandoning that process.
Yeah, see, Matt's not insane. That's sort of my point of every time I say he sounds insane, but he's not. Like, this is a totally normal thing. We're just completely unexposed to it in this country.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love you.
Yeah. No, I agree. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
I just want to put one last comment in. This business that we're building, we're not going to have one bottle washer in the middle of the United States and everything ships in and out, right? This is about circular regional economies. It has to be that way. And so when we look at how we scale and I look at the Northeast, it's like, where are the economics, the environmental and cost economics of the density and how the materials move around, right? So to me, this is our intent to scale is multiple bottle washers. We don't want a big, 100. Well, eventually we'll probably get to 150,000 per hour bottles washing, but how do we begin to set up those infrastructures, right? That support different regions. So it's very scalable. when you look at it that way.
Definitely. Thank you. And so then we have, can the speakers clarify whether they get all of their returns via retailers versus back through buyback recycling centers? If you do receive from both sources, can you characterize the rough percentage from each source?
Yeah, I'll say that we get well, we'll just say of a cleaned shipment of glass that we get back from the bottle cleaner, I would bet 60% of that comes from the brewery itself. Because we've got 2 restaurant locations, one in Portland and one out here in Hood River. And we have a really high success of getting bottles back to those locations. And then people can get a beer and a pizza, you know, and then move about their day. But I would think, Van, do you have a better feel for what the OBRC sees? Because I think I would say across the board from the state level, I would guess the real numbers more like 75% come back through the bottle drop locations, which are, and not the retailers, but mostly the bottle drop locations.
Yeah. So for non-Oregonians, bottle drop is literally, I have no idea how many there are in the state. Let's just say 20 sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
And please remember, Oregon is a very, very big place. We're the 10th largest state in the union by landmass. But there's about 20 of them. And so these are places where literally people take the bottles that they have drank, and then you kind of put them in a machine. And every time you put them in a machine, you know, a dime comes out. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Works like that. I would say for us, for all the bottles we sell directly out of our tap room, we get probably maybe 30, maybe 40% back. I've never really done the math. But most of the stuff that's getting returned is definitely through outside retailer return. And you know, we don't have a bottle washer, so either way, it either comes back to Gigantic or it comes into a grocery store or a bottle drop location, and then goes to OBRC, who then takes it to the washer, and then we buy. The brewery just buys from one supplier, which is OBRC. So it's a one-stop shop for us.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then Peter says, how realistic is it to expect other brewers to standardize on one type of bottle? I know you guys, when we met as panelists, you talked about how, not controversy, but there was some like, it took a while to develop a bottle that everybody agreed on, right? And do you have to do this, or is it just helpful if there's a standard bottle?
I think it's incredibly helpful if there's a standardized bottle. It makes the logistics easy, and they can go back and forth between a couple of different brewers. It's why it works, you know, in Canada, because there's a Canadian beer bottle. There used to be an American long neck bottle that was standard. But American capitalism, you know, I want to be different. I need a very specific package that's just very specific to me. And that's the death nail for the environment. It's a little unrealistic to expect everybody to do it, but, you know, we're looking at incentivizing and pressure, you know, at the federal level or the state level to encourage people to do it. And then the logistics and the savings to the brewer incentivize them to save money by using a standard bottle and just lower their costs coming in the door. So it was a challenge when we were designing this new bottle for the state of Oregon. I pushed hard to use my bottle, you know, because I loved it, and I didn't have to change the branding image of my brewery by using, you know, this European bottle that came out of Germany. It was a beautiful bottle, and I say that a lot. It was a beautiful bottle, but other breweries didn't want to jump in. They're like, well, that's the Double Mountain bottle. I don't want to brand my beer like Double Mountain. And so, you know, I'm like kicking and screaming to the design meetings, like, okay, let's do it a different way. We'll make a unique marketing image bottle, you know, that's not my image, and I'll support it, and I will jump in and I will do this program. then we're the first people to adopt the program. And then brewers are saying like, well, I can't use that bottle. It's the Double Mountain bottle. I'm like, I'm kind of pissed at you people.
Gigantic one. I would like to make this counter argument. Does anyone ask if brewers and beverage manufacturers are having a problem with being in the same size can?
No.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, again, I think we can all imagine a world not too far from now where at the state level and at the federal level, they just say, this is bullshit. I mean, we're going to lose the state of Florida, whether that's good or bad. Like climate change is coming, disaster is coming. My state was on fire for most of last year. I mean, I'm pissed off at this stuff. And so that moves politicians, that moves people, that moves votes. And if one way to get there is to say, you know what, here's the container and it's going to be reused, like this is going to get forced upon us eventually. I truly believe that. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but it's coming. Or maybe the earth just won't be here, but a change is a coming, as Bob Dylan said.
I think the industry, we're also designing industry standard bottles for the wine and beer industry. And that's the utopian space. I can tell you, working with some of the big brands, I'm not quite sure where that shift's going to happen, Matt, because they have so much invested. We work with really big brand managers and they've just got so much embedded in there. And so it's, and in Europe, they do have a lot of their own, we went and looked at all the systems in Germany and every beer brand has its own bottle, but that's a very mature system and it's very efficient and it works. But we see the craft brewing industry and the craft industry in general, quite frankly, whether it's over even in the distilled spirit side, you see that same bottle. But I love your analogy, Van, is that everybody's using the same can. Yeah. And I'm gonna hang on to that. That was a nugget for tonight. But yeah, the industry standard is how we're launching. And especially on the wine side too. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
Awesome.
Could you imagine putting a Cabernet in a Burgundy bottle? Oh, could you imagine?
Can you tell the difference on the shelf?
The horror.
That's a Burgundy bottle.
Oh man. So I won't read Julianne's comment, but I do agree with her that it is so interesting how this used to be how everything was done. My husband and I lived in essentially a large village or a small town, however you want to look at it, in Rwanda. And that's how they did all their sodas. That's how they did everything. It was a way of life. And I just keep thinking, why aren't we doing this if it's so seemingly doable if you have the infrastructure there? So anyway, but yeah, I think it was only maybe Matt or Van and Karen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it just the 20s or 30s that it started to kind of fade out? And then by, I don't know, the 50s or 60s, what was the time frame for when the milkman went away basically?
Late
60s.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they rolled through. There was still a few more operations left, and I don't know if it was in the soda or the beer category, but actually into the early 90s, the last of the plants turned off.
Okay. Yeah.
You used to be able to get refillable bottles at Huber out of Wisconsin and up into the mid 90s. But I mean, as the 60s was kind of when that was starting to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I apologize. They call me Mr. Tangent, but I got to tell a story.
Go for it.
I got a buddy that's a brewmaster in Bavaria, and he helped me out buy packaging equipment. When I was working out there, and he's a guy from Wyoming or Montana, an American that yeah. And so in their brewery, in this town, they bottle their beer, it's returnable, but there's a beer delivery guy, And he goes around house to house, and he'll go into your house, open the fridge, and go like, Jurgen needs a little bit more dark. And so then he'll put a little dark beer in, like, he needs more Hefeweizen. And it's magical. There's just restocking their actual refrigerators in their houses. And most of his market is within 30 kilometers of the brewery. And I almost moved to Bavaria as soon as he told me that story. I was blown away. I loved it. It's illegal here, but
That's amazing though.
Like, I looked into it. Turns out it's illegal.
I did.
I just want to make sure, Juliana, that there's something I want to make sure everybody I wanted to say before we close out is that we're really working on the big side of this, right? We're trying to get the big producers this is about investment in infrastructure, right? And although I work with a lot of local craft, I have a craft heart, but I know that we need to get the big producers in. And what I believe is going to be happening is as we begin to build the infrastructure across the United States, and is that at the top level, is that now what it's going to do is, we get bottle bills or extended producer responsibility. So funding starts to come in, that's going to help the rural communities to get, that's going to help to energize the rural communities as we begin to really invest more across with the larger companies. I believe the federal government will come in. So I believe the rural communities is keeping a tune of what's going on in your local community and getting engaged. The change is going to happen with action, like what Matt's doing, right? And then you just begin to swell. That's what we did, right? We began to swell, and here we are talking with Coca-Cola and Anheuser-Busch, right? And getting them to really invest. This is the hard part. Let me tell you, I'm working on that right now. But rural communities will benefit from as we collectively go to bring reuse back, not only in this industry but across the board. So I just wanted to make sure I got
That's
that.
amazing. Thank you so much. So Corinna had a question. She works for Copper Cannon, I believe, if I got that right. Corinna, correct me if I'm wrong. But since we're not a bottle bill state and we don't have existing infrastructure for returning and getting funds back, she said, do you suggest giving customers a discount or compensate for returned bottles or collect them for free?
We give a discount. If you bring a case of bottles back to the brewery, you get a free pint of beer plus your deposit back. I just assume that if you're going to have 1 pint of beer, you might order a pizza and maybe have 2 pints of beer. So it totally works out for us. So yes.
That's awesome. I love that. And that goes with what Van was talking about with the community too, that like breeds community.
That's exactly the way we ran our pilot in Northern Nevada. Not a bottle bill state. And Tom would, they bring a case back in, and I told him not to give him that much, but he was giving him a pint for every case they brought. I said, you're giving him too much. But yeah, that worked really well.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are about 9 minutes away from closing. We have a few more questions. We'll get through as many as we can. And let's see. So we have, can the speakers characterize the rough unit cost of a single-use beer bottle versus a bottle designed for refilling?
Yeah, I'll do that. So it's all over the map. If you have a custom beer bottle, say one that you're importing, those costs could be 30 cents to 45 cents for something that's really specialized. New, if you're a big giant regional brewery and you're buying millions of units, you can get a long neck beer bottle in the 15, 16, 17 cent range ish. The OBRC returnable refillable bottle program is competitive with that. And on the 12-ounce side and on the half of the 500 ml side, it's more competitive, as in, it's cheaper for me to buy this refillable 500 ml bottle than it is to pay that 30 to 45 cents. It's not quite half the cost, but it might be 60% of that cost. If I had a bottle that was just mine, I owned it. I cleaned it. I can clean a beer bottle for about a penny, maybe two. And so that's where the rubber really meets the road. I mean, I'm doing OBRC because the infrastructure is, takes so much of the headache out of it, and I want to see it work, like what Karen's doing in California and across the country. But if you're in Germany, your bottle is a fraction of what a new bottle is.
But isn't it even with OBRC with 500 mils, like once you're buying used glass, washed glass, you're down to like 8 or 9 cents a bottle, right? Something like that.
Well, what they did is they kind of subsidized new glass by combining the price with reclean glass. So they came up with a one-time cost. But yeah, the actual cost structure, Van, it is different. Yeah, it's a fraction.
And our business model says the same thing. I mean, we make money selling washed bottles, but to the producer, they get those bottles for less, and it costs less the larger the size of the bottle. If you go up to a wine bottle,
sure,
producers will pay less for those bottles.
Oh, and I don't know the wine industry, Karen. Wine bottles, $1 a bottle. Is that about where it lands? Is it about $1 a bottle for a wine bottle? No, it's not that much.
I mean, it really depends, right? Of course, again, it depends, but those bottles, there's a lot more gross margin, if I can put it that way, just in the bottle alone, right? And it doesn't cost us that much more to wash it. If you look, you just have to slow the machine down a bit and a few other things, but the opportunity, the smaller bottles have a really tight margin, but they do cost less as we sell them back.
Okay, great. And so the last question that we're going to take, Marianne Christensen, the executive director of the Hannah Grimes Center, asked, she said, New Hampshire has several farms that use reusable glass. Wonder if that's the foundation for shared washing facilities. So that's part one. And then part two, she said, are there examples of other types of refillable glass projects like JAM? Because JAM is actually the example that Marianne brought up this morning when we were talking. So it's funny that it has come up a few times.
Well, milk, I mean, it's the classic. It still happens a little bit here and there.
Yep.
And I gotta say, honestly, if you can make washing milk bottles work, you can make anything work, because forgive me for talking this way, but brewers think they're the cleanest people in the world, which is, we're pretty clean, but we're not the cleanest people in the world, because, if you don't clean something right, and in beer, it tastes bad, but if you don't clean something right in milk, like, children die, so if you can make refillable bottle work in milk, you can make it work in anything, right? Because you got to worry about kids. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I did want to say too, that I tried to get a couple of breweries to come that Karen had suggested to me. There's one in, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Straub, S-T-R-A-U-B, Pennsylvania, that they never stopped. They've been doing it all along. And then there was one in, I can't think of the name of the other one that you mentioned to me, but that they just kind of said, you know what, we don't have a regional bottle washing station. We don't have existing infrastructure, but we're going to bootstrap it and do it ourselves because we believe in it that much. What is that one, Karen?
Iron Brewing in Missoula, Montana.
Yep. So there are examples of places and people that are doing this and have been doing this. So yeah, and if you hear of projects that are working with various projects, please let us know at Radically Rural, because we have a great opportunity for a platform to be able to elevate those things that are working, so that we can, encourage other small communities to learn from that. Great. So we have 3 minutes, and what I would like to do is let you know about the next roundtable that we're going to have. We have Kristen Powers with us from Benevolence Farm, and we are going to be doing a roundtable on her organization. And I will just share my screen very quickly. If I can keep my wits about me for a few more minutes here. Okay. So Benevolence Farm, it's called Growing Second Chances. It's on May 27th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Same time. We want to keep including our West Coast family. And it's on Benevolence Farm, a North Carolina nonprofit that's using entrepreneurship and farming to reap change in the rural criminal legal system. And 50% of ticket sales will go straight to Benevolence Farm. So I'm going to drop this link to the Ticket Elf right in there. And we're not really doing discounts on this because we want to raise as much money as possible for Benevolence Farm. And then just a plug for Radically Rural, which is taking place on September 22nd and 23rd. And you can go to radicallyrural.org to learn more about that. But I'm going to drop this in the chat here. And Kristen, is there anything you want to say?
Thanks for having me. This is Kristen from Benevolence Farm, and we'll be talking a lot about supporting formerly incarcerated women through farming enterprise. So that will be a conversation we'll have on the 27th, along with some community partners that also work on supporting people in rural communities that are affected by the criminal legal system. And you're welcome to go to benevolencefarm.org too to learn more. And we have, like I said, farming enterprise and also a body care enterprise that incorporates our flowers and herbs that we grow on the farm. And I'm happy to talk more about that next month.
Absolutely. And if you go to that Ticket Elf link, I have kind of like a full bio or a full explanation of the organization, as well as all of our panelists in their bio. And it also contains a link to their online shop if you want to order any of their products. And they have a really cool program where you can actually order a bar of soap to donate to someone who's currently incarcerated. So it's really neat. And we hope that everyone will join. And, you know, I know for me, if I do something right away, I don't forget. So you should go ahead and click on that link like now and and register for that. We would love to have you. So thank you everyone for being here. This was fantastic. I'm so grateful. I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be in the presence of so many wonderful people. And we will look forward to hopefully seeing everyone on the 27th. And if you want either Van or Matt or Karen's contact information, just reach out. Happy to pass it along. And thank you to our panelists. We're so grateful for you. And everyone have a great night. Cheers. Bye.